Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Aging Games podcast. Today, I have Ashlee Rowland. Did I say that correctly? Rowland, right? Rowland on the
Yep.
podcast. And we're going to talk about all kinds of things. We're going to talk about Hashimoto, circadian health, circadian way of eating, and why it's so important. Now, Ashlee has this amazing page on Instagram called Simple Holistic, without DE, just Simple Holistic. We'll link everything below. And Ashlee, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
I'm so excited to pick your brain. I love your page. I love your stories. I love that you're still breastfeeding your 4-year-old child. I think that's so amazing. You know, the looks that you get from people. I breastfed my son for 2 years and I got some looks. So I can imagine. But from one
I
mom
love
to
that.
another, I love the stories like that. So Ashlee, for those who might not be following you, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do?
Of course, yeah. So I'm Ashley and I'm a holistic nutritionist. I live in Hawaii. I have two little boys and my husband Tommy. We all live here together, obviously. And I work with women with infertility, hormone, imbalance, and autoimmunity. Those are my areas of expertise because those are all the areas that I struggled in my health with. We normally become experts at something that we've dealt with ourselves because I say a woman that has experienced something is much more of an expert than even a doctor who's been trained in that because they go to the ends of the earth to figure out how they can fix this because they just know that something is not right. So I just turned 30, and when I was a teenager, I was a competitive dancer and I played softball competitively and I was just really active. And then I got really sick. I was raised on a standard American diet. I had a single mom and she did her best to to feed us and do what she could, but she didn't know what she didn't know. And so my breakfast was Lucky Charms and Pop Tarts, and dinner was Hamburger Helper. And we didn't even have like fresh fruit in our house. And this was in Alaska. I was born and raised in Alaska.
Oh,
So
from Alaska to Hawaii. That's quite a
Alaska
switch.
to Hawaii. I know it. And so when I was a teenager, I started getting diagnosed with these autoimmune conditions, like juvenile rheumatoid arthritis and then Hashimoto's, PCOS, celiac, bone spurs, Osgood-Schlatter's. I mean, essentially my whole body was just in this systemic inflammatory, chronic cortisol elevated state. And I was really sick, but I didn't know anything about natural anything. I like didn't know that that world even existed because I had never, really had that growing up. And so when my whole entire world was dance. And when one day I just collapsed to the ground because I was in so much pain, I couldn't dance anymore. It was almost like my world shattered and fell apart. And I had to figure out what was going on. But I literally, it's like I was just in a black room and I had no idea where to go. I didn't even know if I could go. I didn't know if I was in a room, if I was behind a brick wall, because I didn't know there was another alternative other than like what the doctors were saying, like get surgery, go on pain meds, we need to remove these bone spurs, go on antibiotics, go on this medication, get on birth control. And I was like, I'm not doing any of that, but I also don't know what to do. So I just kind of stayed in this state of pain and my body breaking down until I finally learned a little bit about holistic wellness from a family that I was nannying. So it was really interesting.
So that was your first introduction to natural health.
Yeah, yeah. I had an aunt growing up, and she always laughs when she hear this. And she like cooked from scratch, and they were gluten free, and I thought it was like the worst thing ever. I'm like, oh, please don't send us to her house. And but I ended up learning a lot from her, and I asked her like, what are some foods I should avoid? And she was like, okay, on the label, you don't want it to be more than 7 ingredients. You want to avoid partially hydrogenated oils and high fructose corn syrup. So like that's where I started when I
That's a
was.
good start, I think, for
Yeah,
anyone. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
And did that start changing your life?
It did because if you take out partially hydrogenated oils and high fructose corn syrup, and all you eat is junk, pretty soon, like there's not much left that you can consume.
Yeah.
And so then I started nannying for this family, and they were very far beyond just those removal of two ingredients. And so they were 100% organic, seed oil free, sugar free, gluten free, dairy free, soy free, corn free, everything free. And I actually ended up moving to Hawaii with them when I was 17. just for a short bit to just help nanny and experience the island. And in that 1 month span of just living and eating how they did, 100% of my symptoms and pain went away in 1 month. And when I left the island and went back to Alaska, I was like, there's no way this is just from like, it's probably just because I was in Hawaii or whatever. And I went to the store and I remember I bought like a bag of Doritos, I bought some whatever, and immediately the symptoms came back. And it was that moment when I was 17 years old, 18 years old, 17, 18. I've never consumed any quote unquote junk since then. It's been 12 years. I'm a very extreme person, black and white. That
Yeah.
doesn't cause me stress. It was just like, I don't want that in my body. I don't want that around me. I don't want the smells, the chemicals, the fragrance. And so it's been 12 years of now getting to where I am, of being able to get pregnant after I was diagnosed with infertility and I had a vaccine injury. And then I reversed all the autoimmunity that I had. And so here we are.
Wow, well done. Do you think being in Hawaii, do you think like as far as your circadian health, just being in the sun and the sea and everything, do you think that also helped in getting better?
100%. Like, do I believe that if we would have been in Alaska and I would have still made those dietary changes, would I have gotten better? Yeah.
Mhm.
Would it have been as drastic? Probably not, because it was the middle of winter. It's dark all the time. I'm not outside, but here in Hawaii, it's basically year round. There are variations, like right now it's winter here and we're like, oh, it's cold. It's 58 degrees at
Yeah.
night. But the light timing is essentially the same. There are variations, but it's very consistent here. The birds, the way they chirp, like you start learning the different bugs, you start seeing the different fruit on the trees. And, even though people think it's just like this 24/7 year round, oh, you have fruit all the time, but like, no, like there's avocado season, there's citrus season,
Yes.
there's soursop season, there's lilikoi season. Like we have our seasons here. And I think that closeness to nature and the ocean and the sun and being like this low, like towards the equator was really healing for my body.
Yeah, that makes such a big difference. I'm in the Mediterranean, so I know I'm from Canada originally, but the
Okay.
Mediterranean is quite a different lifestyle. I mean, I can't
Yeah,
imagine ever
wow.
going back to a cold climate. I love it here. Ashley, can we
Yeah.
circle back for just a moment to your bone spurs? Were you able to address those as well? Because I have
Yeah,
a
so the
friend
bone
who's
spurs.
struggling with this and I don't even know what to
Oh,
do.
wow. Yeah, yeah. So bone spurs, it's an issue of calcification. It's the bones. And so mine, I had three shark tooth-like spurs on my hip that were cutting open my bursa sac, which is why I was in
Wow.
such bad pain. I was basically bone on bone too in my hip. It would do this weird popping thing, and it was crazy. But it was actually crazy. And one of my favorite things is when doctors are like, blown away. When things happen, they kind of don't understand it when there's no medical intervention. And so I had gone in, they, took all whatever scans and things they did. They saw the bone spurs. These are cutting open the bursa sac. These have to be surgically removed, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, I'm not doing surgery. I'm like 16 years old. That's crazy. Not
Yeah.
getting hip surgery. So in that time of coming to Hawaii, I was here and then I went back and we did another scan and the bone spurs were completely, they weren't sharp and jagged anymore. They were completely dulled down and they were like almost gone entirely. So
Wow.
I remember, so I'm Alaska Native. I look very white because my German gene took over, but I'm Alaska Native. So in Alaska, we get free medical care, like at the Alaska Native Medical Center. And so the doctor, I remember in the waiting, like in the op room, the doctor's like screaming, raising their voice at me. Why did you get surgery somewhere else? You could have gotten it done for free here. And I'm
No.
like, I did not get surgery. Like, and they're like, this could not go away on its own. But what happened is my body got into a more alkaline state. It was balanced. It wasn't as acidic. And those bone spurs literally decalcified. And now I've helped, hundreds and hundreds of clients do the same. So we're dealing with it can be estrogen driven. It can, then that leads to mineral imbalances. There's the toxicities. It's like a whole picture. But what's essentially happening is there's a calcification that's happening within the body. And that was the bone spurs.
Wow, that is super interesting so that it can be reversed with lifestyle.
Yeah,
So for
absolutely.
somebody who is menopausal, could this be an estrogen issue?
Absolutely, yeah. So I would say, and you know this, like menopause is so misunderstood because it's such a diagnosable and treatable
Yeah,
like
exactly.
heaven for doctors.
Yeah.
They're like, ooh, women are experiencing these horrible symptoms. Like, how can we make money off of it? And so, like women are all told, oh, you need to get on estrogen or you need to get on testosterone. I literally just had a message this morning about someone. She messaged me, was like, hey, I'm taking testosterone and estrogen. Well, the patches, she was asking about the patches.
Uh-huh,
And
yeah.
I'm like, full stop. Like, um, I don't really think anyone is devoid of estrogen in this world with all the like estrogens, xenoestrogens. There's like an issue with is it being sequestered, all of those things, which we don't have to jump into. But when estrogen is dominant in the body, I was actually just writing a post on this yesterday in my community.
Mhm.
Estrogen drives cortisol. Cortisol drives estrogen. All of this help like basically makes the body either extremely depleted or devoid of progesterone via that pregnenolone steal. And then that messes with all the other minerals and hormones and fatty acids and all of that. And so if someone is in a menopausal state, which there's a lot of questions to ask here, like, are you actually in a menopausal state? Or are you in just like a very estrogenic, toxic state? Um, I've had clients that go through my course or work with me that actually reverse menopause and they like get their cycle back after 8 to 10 years of no cycle. And they're
Wow,
like,
that's
I don't know how I
amazing.
feel about that. And I'm like, I know it might seem, you might have loved that you weren't having a cycle, but now you're in a vital state again because having your cycle isn't just about getting pregnant. It's about fertility is like a vitality signal, I tell people. But, anyways, to answer your question, being in that estrogen dominant state can 100% lead to bone spurs, autoimmunity, digestive issues, skin issues, hair loss, night sweats, like all of those things that are going on. And knowing that essentially everything in today's modern world drives estrogen, our light, like the light bulbs in people's homes, the blue light, circadian rhythm being mismatched, people scrolling on their phones at night, all the xenoestrogens in plastics, and then high estrogenic foods and all the things, like it absolutely contributes.
Well, that's a great explanation. Thank you so much for that. And
Yeah.
actually, can you tell us a little bit about your Hashimoto's, your battle with Hashimoto's and how you overcame that?
Yeah.
It's also
So,
very common today.
oh my gosh, I know it's wild to me. I would say that when a client comes to me, say 100 clients come to me, about 95 of them have either like hypothyroid, it's usually just undiagnosed Hashimoto's, but they're all having some kind of hypothyroid something. Like it's really quite crazy. But yeah, I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. People are whenever I tell people that I reversed it, they're like, well, maybe it was misdiagnosed to begin with. I'm like, oh yeah, because there's no way the body could heal, right?
Yeah.
So
I
my
had that too. I had the
antibodies,
same issue because I also had Hashimoto's and it's the same thing for me. And they're like, that's not possible, it is.
you're like, I mean, I'm living proof, but it's
Yeah,
okay if you want to
exactly.
stay tied to that. So
Yeah.
yeah, the antibodies were just unbelievable, and the cold extremities, the hair loss, the outer eyebrow thinning, the digestive issues, the weight, like puffiness, weight gain kind of stuff, all of that was going on, and I just remember being like, number one, what does Hashimoto's even mean? Like, I didn't know anything about the human body at all. And so when I enrolled in my nutrition program, when I knew nothing about nutrition, by the way, I didn't even know what a calorie was. So, like, anybody can get started anywhere. I didn't know what a calorie was, I didn't know what a macro was. And so I started learning about Hashimoto's and I started learning about thyroid health and, more of like the ancestral ways of eating and living and how this is like a newer epidemic truly of what is like women are experiencing and men too. So that was like my biggest focus for a long time was the Hashimoto's. And so I'm constantly Googling foods for Hashimoto's, supplements for Hashimoto's. And as a disclaimer for everyone, none of that worked. I pounded down the broccoli and the broccoli sprouts because first someone told me to have the broccoli, but then I shouldn't have the broccoli because it's a goitrogenic. And then now I should have the broccoli sprouts because of the sulfur pathways. And I cut out every food. I was eating only 5 foods for many, many years of my life. Like I couldn't eat anything because my digestion got so wonky. And then I started pounding nuts and seeds to try to seed cycle. And when my thyroid finally healed, is when I stopped doing all of that. That is like kind of mainstream, the dim, the pastry berry, like all of that for hormones as well. And the broccoli sprouts and all these things. And I'm not saying broccoli sprouts aren't good, like they're a powerhouse of nutrients, but it's when I started eating animal-based nose to tail nutrition. So I'm not saying like carnivore. I'm just saying I stopped building my plates around like kale salads with like a little bit of chicken on the
Chicken
side. And
breast,
instead,
dry chicken breast on the side, right?
oh, so disgusting. And massaging my kale, like, we started eating an animal-based diet that includes honey, and we do sourdough. And, at that time I wasn't doing sourdough because I was celiac as well. I'm saying now. So I'll stay focused on what I did then. So we were doing animal-based, so gelatinous cuts of meats, getting lots of glycine and proline and all the amino acids and collagen, and then lots of fruit. And we'll talk more on like the circadian bit and seasonal eating in a minute, so I can nuance that. But lots of fruit, honey, maple syrup, slow cooked, like congees, things like that. And then the mineral piece is what completely flipped the switch for me. So when I finally started learning about minerals, which is interestingly enough, the last thing I ever learned about, which I'm like, hello, this is the first thing we need to learn about. That's when I reversed the Hashimoto's, reversed the celiac, reversed the PCOS, reversed the quote unquote infertility. I got pregnant. I mean, like, that is when my whole life completely flipped. That's when I launched my first course. Like, that's when really I kind of got started, because people had been watching me struggle in my health for like 6, 8 years at this point. They're probably like, when is this girl ever going to heal? And then I finally healed because I learned about the synchronicity of minerals. And, they're what runs the whole body, the spark plugs of the body. And I started consuming beef liver, and I started adding boron and taking mineral baths and things like that. And so that's when everything shifted. And now I've had literally hundreds of clients reverse Hashimoto's as well. So for anyone listening to this, you 100% can reverse Hashimoto's, because with any disease, all a disease is dis-ease, and it's a bunch of symptoms that are given a name so they can prescribe you a drug for it.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. That's
yeah.
so from that, let's go to circadian eating. What is circadian? I mean, we know about all these diets, keto diet, carnivore diet, vegan diet, all of that stuff. What makes circadian diets different?
Yeah, so when it comes to a circadian supportive lifestyle diet, all of that, whenever we're talking about that in this episode, we're just talking about you honoring that 24-hour circadian rhythm that your body has. Like in nature, there's light and there's dark. Certain things are awake in the day, they sleep at night, or it's flopped, if they're the opposite, like bats and things. And the tides and everything has this rhythm. And so for us as humans to think that we don't have to live by this rhythm is actually like quite crazy. And I would say that if there was one thing that someone was going to do right now, it would be to focus on living by their circadian rhythm, and then even further fine tuning that based on where they specifically are in the world. So like if you live in Alaska or Canada, that's different than here, not only in terms of like light and cold and that stuff, but also the food that we have. So when we live a circadian supported lifestyle, this means we are fully in tune with the environment around us, because things like light and temperature and even pressure or altitude, like where you are, those are all signals to your cells of where you physically are on the earth, kind of like getting your bearings. Okay, I'm in the north. Oh, I'm in the tropics. And so when somebody eats a banana or a pineapple in the dead of winter in Canada or Alaska, the body's like, wait, it's dark and I'm cold, but she just ate a pineapple. Like where are we? What's going on here that causes inflammation in the body? And so we don't want, tons of inflammation in the body. So when you're in the north, because a lot of people are in the north that, follow me and probably follow you as well, there are specific ways to support yourself there, because you can experience health and vitality even if you're in the north. So a lot of people are like, oh, I can't be healthy because I live in the north. And it's like, no, like God created all these places and all these people, and you can thrive in any of these places, because like people have like Ancestrally, the Athabascans, like I'm an Athabascan Alaskan native, they thrive there. They thrive off of whale blubber and the fat, and they are living outside. You know, like they
Oh,
thrive there. And the people, the native Hawaiians, like they thrive here. So there are different ways to thrive. And it might be a little bit more appealing for some to thrive like the Hawaiians. Like that's why I moved here because that's a little bit more appealing to me. But so if you're in the north, you are going to have significant shifts from summer to winter. And that is like in your work. So, like, you should be slowing down in the winter. That's in your lifestyle. Like, you still need to be getting outside in the winter, but you're not going to be spending as much time outside than you as you do in the summer. And if you do, you're going to be bundled up. You're going to need warm gear. It's probably going to be raining, and you're not even going to be able to synthesize vitamin D because the frequencies of that spectrum are too low, and your diet's going to significantly change. So you would be preserving all of your food in the summer, and you would be eating a higher fat, situation. That's when maybe the sourdough and the grains and more of the like starchy things would come in. And in the summer, you have your abundance. You have your blueberries and your blackberries and your raspberries and your strawberries and tangerines and peaches and all the lovely things that they have in the north that we don't have here in the tropics. And so if you aren't willing to make those shifts, you are living in misalignment every single day with where you are. And so I tell people, if you're not willing to make the shift of where you are, then go somewhere else. And like that's not an option for everyone, or people don't make that a priority or an option. And so you decide, are you going to thrive where you are? Are you going to leave, or are you going to not thrive where you are because you're going to make excuses? And so in just like when I was saying the food is information and everything's information, like food is so much more than just you take a bite of an apple and it maybe has some nutrients in it, which does it even like, was the soil even good that it was grown in? But it's like, it is literally information for your body. It's like minerals bound just the perfect way they're supposed to with the perfect water, but it all has messaging in it. Because if your apple, or let's say your banana was grown in Ecuador and you're in Alaska. First, you have the mismatch of like, that is not from here. Then you have the mismatch of now it's on a barge for 2 weeks. Then you have the mismatch of there's no way they can pick a ripe banana in Ecuador and get it to you in Alaska without it just being a complete black mush banana. So they pick it before it's ripe, meaning it doesn't even contain all the minerals and nutrients that it should. And then they chemically ripen it with ethylene gas, and then you get the banana. So like the banana you're consuming is like hardly even food at that point.
yeah.
So it goes just really deep from a circadian perspective of like how far away, how far removed we are from living, how we're designed to live, and what effort you're willing to put in to return to that. And if you aren't willing to put in the effort to return to that because you live in a climate that maybe makes it a little bit more difficult or cold, then your health will struggle because you're literally giving misaligned inputs into your body every single day that you leave the lights on into the evening when the sun has set and it's dark, at 3 p.m. when the sun would set in Alaska. Like, I get it.
Yeah.
It kind of sucks to like live in the dark from 3 p.m. until like 10 a.m. the next morning. But if you choose to do that, to leave the lights on, there is a consequence, like when it comes to your health.
So if somebody comes to see you, Ashley, would this be the first thing that you start to working on with them?
When clients come, we do like an intake. We kind of figure out everything that they're doing. And a lot of people that come to me have already been dismissed by like 7 to 10 doctors, practitioners, whatever it may be. And so basically the like statement that I receive all the time is, I'm doing everything and none of it's working.
Mhm.
And then I kindly rebuttal, well, if you were doing everything, then you would be healed. So obviously either something that you're doing isn't actually working, isn't supportive, or you're actually not doing everything. And then they're kind of like, okay. And then the second thing we do is we actually remove from their plate, because if your plate is full of things that don't matter and aren't working, then you have no space to add anything new that I'm going to recommend. And the third thing we do is like a time, energy, like we do an audit of everything. What supplements are you taking and why? Oh, well, because so and so said I should on Instagram. Well, no, like that person doesn't know anything about you.
Yeah.
Or, well, I'm doing this. Well, I want to do this, but I'm actually not doing it. Okay, well, that's much different than doing it. And then we look at what's your light environment like? What's your EMF load like? What's your toxic load? What are your relationships like? And so when someone comes to me, they're not just getting like a nutrition protocol, they're getting a lifestyle audit and quote unquote protocol. And basically, I'm giving them like, hey, you've had the power to change your health this whole time, but you can either do it or not. And here's the guide on how to do it. And whether or not they do it, it's their choice. But most of my clients do because they've paid me a lot of money. They
And
want to do it.
if somebody doesn't agree to do this, will you still work with them or you will not?
No,
No.
no. So there are non-negotiables I have. Like if someone isn't willing to work towards getting a water filter and they're just going to be like drinking tap water, I will not work with them because there are like very basic things that I'm like, if you're not willing to do this, then you're not willing to do anything. And like tap water is a known carcinogen to humans. So like get the filter, we don't have to get this expensive one. And I give them options. And the thing is when it comes to your health, you're trading some kind of resource. You're either trading your time or you're trading your money or you're trading like some other resource, your energy. And so somebody that has a lot more money might be able to just go buy like the nicest water filter. And that's a lot less effort. But if somebody's on an extreme budget, they're a college student missionary like I've worked with, then they're the ones that have to put in a little bit more effort. They have to go buy a 5-gallon jug, and then they have to go to their local store and fill it up with RO water every day. And then they have to add the minerals back into it, but it's only 25 cents a gallon. So like there is no excuse is the point. Like when I share that with clients, it's just the amount of effort or the amount of resource, whether that's money or time or energy or whatever that you're willing to put into it. So yeah, if a client isn't willing to make shifts and they just basically want me to give them a bunch of supplements and put them on a restrictive diet, we just close out the case and they move on. And that's never happened, by the way. That's never
Okay,
happened.
that's good to know. So when people come to you, they're quite serious about getting better, especially if they go to all these experts and doctors and nobody was able to help.
Yeah. And I'm very clear about who this is for, who it's not for. If you want a quick fix, I'm not for you. If you're not willing to put in effort, I'm not for you. If you're not willing to either put in money or time, I'm not for you. And people are like, okay, got it.
That's really good. I mean, a lot of people kind of pussyfoot around these things, and I like how direct you are. You just tell them as it is and take it or leave it. That's absolutely the best way to do it. It's brilliant.
Exactly. And I tell them like you're paying me money, so like let's not waste anybody's time or resources here. If what you were doing worked, you wouldn't be here. So we have to stop what you're doing. If you're living in mold, you have to get out of the environment or you have to fix the problem. I don't care how much money it is or how inconvenient it is. That's the way that it works.
And it blows my mind that there are still people out there who are drinking tap water. Like that's just
I know.
Seriously?
I'm sometimes like,
we knew that in the night. Well, you're much younger than me, but I mean, in the 90s, we stopped drinking tap water. Like, what's going on?
I know it. Stop it. It's unbelievable.
It's crazy. Ashlee, how do you feel about supplements? Do you recommend supplements for people? Are there certain supplements, or do you prefer alternatives?
We, in my clinic and like in my household, we're a food first always, but we understand that the soil is depleted. So a common misunderstanding that people have is that they're like, oh, well, I'm eating this food because it's high in this nutrient.
Yeah.
And that used to be true, but those nutrition labels that say is like on blueberries or spinach or almonds or whatever you're consuming, those were made over 100 years ago when our soil was extremely different than it is now. It actually had nutrients in it, but now due to monocropping and pesticide use and all the different things, there's a bunch of parakeets outside of
sweet.
the window.
Nice.
Due to all of these poor practices, soil practices, our soil is literally depleted. So people don't understand that the only reason that spinach or that blueberry had nutrients in it is because the soil had nutrients. Like spinach in and of itself just isn't like filled with magnesium or, whatever people eat it for. It has to come from something. Like you can't just get something out of nothing. And so unless we have a farmer or ourselves and we're supporting the soil, we're regenerating it, we're putting nutrients and fish meal and all these other things back into it, we aren't getting the food that, or the nutrients that we think we're getting. So we always do food first. So for example, a lot of people take like beef liver supplements and things. We just eat beef liver.
Yeah.
It's way more cheap. I don't want to swallow like 6 capsules a day, but there are some clients of mine that aren't willing, they don't want to eat raw beef liver and they'd rather pay for the supplement. So that's their choice.
Yeah.
But on their protocol, it will say consume raw beef liver or mix liver into your meat. And then like the third hierarchy basically is like, if you're unwilling to do that, then you can purchase the supplement that's $60 or whatever.
Yeah.
And so same with like vitamin A, like retinol. A lot of people in the north will do like cod liver oil and things like that. And that's seasonally appropriate for them. But we just consume a lot of retinol rich foods. And some people are so severely depleted that there is a time and place like where we'll have to utilize cod liver oil for a little bit. And then eventually they'll get to like a place where they can maintain with raw dairy and egg yolks and beef liver and things like that. So we always do food first. But some common supplements that I'm really regularly putting on client protocol plans is magnesium, like minerals, vitamin E for helping like with oxidative stress and damage and PUFAs and progesterone and all of those things. And then B vitamins is another one because everyone is severely depleted in B vitamins. And what's another common one that we're putting on people's protocols?
How do you feel about supplementing vitamin D? That's a controversial one.
You will never see a vitamin D supplement on my protocols. I have been able to successfully raise clients' vitamin D levels 100% of the time by supplementing magnesium paired with cod liver oil. Mm-hmm. So the retinol with the magnesium raises their active vitamin D levels. I think sorry, there's a mosquito in my room. Knowing the difference between stored vitamin D and like storage vitamin D and active vitamin D is really important because most doctors, even natural doctors, are only testing storage D, which literally makes no sense. And so if you have low storage D and then you're taking this quote unquote like active form of D, you're like looking at 2 completely different sides of the room. Like it doesn't even make sense. So vitamin D supplements, they're a steroid hormone. And so they suppress symptoms. And so a lot of times people will feel like they get better because it's a steroid, like you put a steroid cream on a rash and it goes down because it's suppressing it, but it's not actually identifying the root cause. And so I went through the root cause protocol with Morley Robbins. I'm an RCPC. And so I learned a lot of that, like iron, vitamin D, talk like that. I would have somebody sit in front of like a spare tea lamp before I recommended them a vitamin D supplement. And I know that in the wellness world, even this gets really nuanced, but there would maybe be 1 in 1,000 case that I might find I don't know. I don't even think I can say that. I've just never recommended vitamin D to someone. It's just really nuanced,
I agree.
Yeah.
I was thinking you were going to say that, but I thought I'd ask.
Yeah.
And Ashlee, you also work with LifeWave patches. I know you have a big passion for them. Can you tell me, I know you have some success stories to share with us, right? One was with your son with X39.
Yeah. So when it comes to these patches, these are the patches. I mean, I have LifeWave right here. I have an X39 somewhere, and Lynn has one on her hand. So these patches, they are phototherapy patches that, they upregulate, like the X39 upregulates your body's natural copper peptide, GHKCU, and this copper peptide is clinically proven to activate stem cells and your own stem cells. And so people know, like they've heard about stem cells, they know they're good, but they don't really know what they are. And that was me. I was like, yeah, stem cells, that sounds amazing. And I know people were getting injected with stem cells, and I was, I'm not interested in injecting myself with anything.
I did that. I went to a clinic in Serbia and I had stem cells. Well, it was my own stem cells, though. I would never take stem cells from anyone else. I had my stem cells banked from when I was much younger. And then I I ended up using my own stem cells, but it's super expensive, super expensive.
Yes.
And then it's still
Yeah,
something you need to repeat regularly. So like this is
exactly.
a much easier option. So I
I
just
know
wanted to
it.
throw that in there because I know a lot of people talk about it, but to actually go and go through the whole procedure of having these injections, and infusions and everything, IVs for a whole week, all day, every
Oh,
day.
oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then like with that, there's like the rejection rate, the failure rate, which you can only put them in specific parts of the body and whatever. And so stem cells are universal cells, meaning that you know all this. I'm just educating the people listening. They can turn into any kind of cell in your body they need to turn into. So the very first cell at conception is a stem cell that then turns into all other cells as the baby, the fetus is being formed. And so if you are somebody that has none of this is like a diagnosis or medical claims or anything. This is just like literally what stem cells does. So if you're somebody whose pancreas suffers, and so I'm not going to name any diseases, but your pancreas is suffering, and you now upregulate your stem cells and you bring your cells back to a more youthful state, those stem cells can now go turn into pancreatic cells. And now all of a sudden, I've seen clients that are able to, I don't know what disease they're dealing with, but they're able to significantly lower insulin and actually get off of it, which is really fascinating because they were
I
born.
don't know what disease they're dealing with. You're funny.
Yeah. Yeah, they
I
were
love
born with this like weird pancreas thing that I don't know, nobody knows about. Um, or say you have something more minor, like your hair's balding, and you've tried doing red light and you tried doing creams or whatever. But the thing is you're working from the outside in. But now you regenerate your stem cells, and your body is now in a more youthful state. The inflammation is, getting controlled in the body, and now these go and they turn into the cells necessary to regrow your hair. So we start seeing people's hair grow back. And I mean, this goes on and on, anything you could ever imagine. So with the patches, we learned about them because my little boy got attacked in his eye by a rooster. The spur, talon, whatever, went through his eyelid and into his eye, cut his eye. It was a crazy situation. And we were transferred to Portland to get a prosthetic eye for him. And so a friend of mine, he's a medical doctor, he had been using these patches in his practice and personally. So he mailed us a ton of them. And I was like, what are these? Like, number one, I don't know anything about this. I read it. It said like phototherapy, non-transdermal. And I'm like, okay, I know that that means light therapy. And I know that that means nothing goes in the body. So at best, or at worst, it's a placebo and nothing's going to happen. And at best, maybe it will help him with pain, or like, I didn't know if they were for pain. I didn't know if they were for eyes. I had no idea. So we started patching him. He was 2 at the time. And we get to Portland. We're at the pre-op to have his prosthetic eye appointment that next morning at 4 a.m. And in the pre-op ultrasound, the surgeons like just can't even speak because they're like, his eye is completely regenerated itself in like 2 weeks. I mean, it was crazy. However long the time kind of blurs. And they sent us home. And so my son has his eye still. And I was obviously very stressed at this time. So I'm still like not having any idea that it's these patches, but he's wearing the patches. And I'm like, oh, great. We eat healthy and maybe it's all the beef liver and whatever. And then we are living in mold. Well, we don't know. We're living in a house and then we all get really sick. And my husband almost, basically had this infection in his mouth that they were concerned was going to travel to his brain. And it was this whole thing. And so I remembering like, oh, we had these patches. So I like put the patches on us that I don't know what they're for. I just put them on us. And we start seeing like really great, release of or reduction of symptoms and things. And I'm like, okay, whatever. So, anyways, fast forward, we've had all this great relief of symptoms and things, and then my son's eye, and I finally gained capacity to look at what these patches are. And I go on and I start reading the clinical studies and I start reading the patents and I start reading about what GHKCU is. And I'm like, oh my God, this is why Hollis's eye regenerated itself because literally we were like, I was just blown away. So I bought the biggest premium kit of patches I could at that moment because we were still just kind of like using the ones Leland had sent. And we bought the biggest kit And then we use them. And so we'd been using them for, Hollis had been using them for about 2-ish years, maybe, I can't remember at that time. And then us way less because he wore them for way longer than we did. And then we had our own experiences with them. My husband, 2 days into patching, he had, um, like sometimes people will get bit by this certain bug and then they'll get all these weird symptoms from it. He had really gnarly symptoms from that, like mid-afternoon slumps where he literally just couldn't hardly be alive. Like he just was useless. And major hair loss, major mood instability, depression, couldn't gain weight, losing weight, always sick, always injured, tearing meniscus, all these things. 2 days into wearing the patches, he runs in the house. He's outside sledding with the kids. And I'm like, thinking he's going to come in and be like, hey, I can't, like play with the kids anymore. And he was like, this is going to sound so cheesy, but these patches gave me my life back. And he like runs out the door. And I'm like, oh, okay, that's great.
Wow.
And I hadn't, felt anything. I'm still wearing them. And I'm one of those people that takes like a long time to feel things. And so 10 days into me wearing them, I had been like a complete PTSD basket case from the rooster and the mold and all the things. And so 10 days in, I felt finally like this nervous system regulation across the board where when something would fall, I wouldn't panic, where if my kids would cry, I wouldn't panic. If like someone knocked on the door, I wouldn't panic. And that was 10 days in. And so I'm like, all right, there's something to this. So I started using them with clients and then I shared them on my Instagram. And now I've had over 1,000 people that I've got to see their personal experiences of them. And so we
Wow.
have people, this is all anecdotal, but like we have a person that with the assistance of their doctor, they have come off of thyroid medications. They had Hashimoto's. Since we're talking about Hashimoto's, we have another girl that had full-blown Hashimoto's. It was also leading to like miscarriages and things like that. Introduction of the patches, complete turnaround, no more Hashimoto's, pregnant, due in like 6 weeks. And that is just scratching the surface of what we've seen. We've seen like nodules going away. We've seen like crazy things going away that I won't jump too much into, so this podcast doesn't have to be like removed, but it's
I
it's
hear
pretty
you.
wild. Yeah.
That is absolutely, it's so nice to hear these things, from somebody firsthand, actually what's happening. I mean, we've been using it for about a year and I mean, I've noticed like subtle things, but obviously I'm very healthy. I have a very healthy lifestyle, same as you.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have those big wow moments as somebody who's actually dealing with all kinds of different health issues and they have been for a
Mm,
long time. But I mean, with your son, that's absolutely incredible. That's like the most
I
amazing
know
story
it.
that I've ever heard. Like,
Yeah, it was actually amazing too, because when we went through the mold, we're not going to talk too much about that story, but we all went through the mold and then now I attract a bunch of mold patients and clients. And so we're able to see now where it would take about an average of 2 years for clients to receive like clear mold tests.
yeah.
With the use of the patches, it's coming in at like 4 months clear of mold.
Wow.
Like
And is this only using
crazy.
X39 or using other patches as well?
We'll always, so a lot of times with mold sick people, we'll start them with Aeon or Eon because it's really gentle and they're so sick. Like I made the mistake. I was just like, oh, I mean, these aren't really doing anything. So I just put on a glutathione for 24 hours and I had like extreme herx reactions. And I'm
Really?
like, okay, so these actually do something. And so
Yeah.
we'll start them with Aeon and X39 or, one or the other. And then at about like, it depends on how they're doing, but generally around like month 2 or month 3, we'll add in the glutathione at really small periods. And now they don't have to do like coffee enemas and take sublingual glutathione, and they're able to actually reduce supplement loads, product loads significantly. 80% is like our statistic in our clinic. Like supplement and protocol loads will drop 80% when we implement the patches. So they're saving tons of money. And it makes sense because everything else is like trying to force the body to do something input. Whereas this is just using the body's own light to regenerate from the inside. And so it's never too much or it's never not enough because it's exactly what you need because it's your light. That's why we use it on my newborn baby and or I use it on a 90-year-old person and everyone's dose, quote unquote dose is different because it's your own body is the source. So it's
Yeah.
really, really fascinating.
Use it on the dogs as well. I have another one
Yes.
right over there. She's almost 17. and still
Oh.
in great shape. And she's patched.
Wow.
Actually, when our patches arrived last March, and I was just opening up the box, and my older dog, she was always like hacking, always doing that. And when the patches arrived, my dad says, "Why didn't you put one on her?" I'm like, "Put one on her? Like, why would I put one on the dog?" And I go, "Okay." So I put an X39 on her, and she's been doing that for days, and she stopped instantly, like that second. And I'm like, "Oh,
Yeah.
so much for a placebo, right?" Because like the dog's gonna know it was a placebo. So
Yeah,
that was
literally.
an instant thing that happened. It was amazing. And since then, my parents are
Wow.
nonstop, and they're 75, and we walk the Camino de Santiago together, and they're like in 20,000 steps a day, and I really think it's like keeping them healthy. And
Absolutely.
I have an aunt with Parkinson's. I'm testing it on her now. I really want to see some good results with that. But I
Mm,
do love that. Like the fact that what you said is that you're not taking anything, it's just using your body's own healing ability to heal itself, which is like the most powerful thing there is, right?
exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And I think
Closing,
like a good way for
sorry, go ahead.
people, I think a good way for people to understand, because it is really complex, but
Yes.
a good way to understand it is like the sun. So like people think the sun gives them vitamin D, but the sun doesn't give you vitamin D. The sun gives you frequencies of light that tell your body to make vitamin D. And the patches are doing the exact same thing, except instead of it being the sun, it's utilizing your body's own infrared frequencies. So, and then making it. And that analogy helps people to be like, oh, so like this actually isn't some new age weird thing. Like literally the sun does this to me every day, like production of melanin or vitamin D or whatever is going on.
That's a good analogy. I will definitely use that. I mean, that's a great
Hmm.
visual as well. Um, just in closing, can we talk about mold a little bit? Because you mentioned mold a couple of times. And with your clients, do you test everybody for mold? Is that a very frequent issue that you see?
We have started testing a lot more people for mold. Like in the past, I would work with clients and be like, what is wrong with them? Like, this is just the most bizarre case. And I didn't really know about mold then. I thought it was kind of like everyone's obsessed with mold. But then we dealt with mold and I saw like, oh, the symptoms. So now if people come to me with really strange symptom sets, we will immediately test for mold. And I'll say that anyone with a strange symptom set, we test for mold, they have mold 100% of the time. That doesn't mean that 100% of my clients have mold, because there's some clients that come to me that I'm like, oh, you just like need to eat more food or you aren't moving your body. But like, oh, you're having all these weird things and you're doing all of this and these things flare at this time, like for sure mold. And so mold is everywhere. Like you cannot be afraid of mold. You can't avoid mold. But what you can do is have an awareness that our building codes are a joke, and homes are literally moldy from the second the studs are up and on. And it's just a breeding ground. And then all the toxic materials the home is built with. Like mold is a control agent. And mold is there to try to break down all these toxic materials that your home is built with, like the plywood and the adhesives on the wood and like all this disgusting material. And so it causes an infestation. And so if you're somewhere like in the north, like we were in Idaho when we had our mold exposure, we were inside a lot because it was winter. It was -30 wind chill, like out in the outside. And then it was 80 in our house because we had a big furnace. So there was 120 or 110 degree, whatever that is, 100, yeah, 110-degree difference in temperature, creating condensation. And there was mold, there was like poor ventilation. There was all these things in the home that, we didn't know about. And so that is a problem. Now, if you're in Hawaii and you're outside all the time, like we know there's mold spores, like there's mold everywhere in Hawaii, especially right now in the winter. It is like mold galore everywhere. And
Yeah.
people were actually shocked when we announced that we were moving to Hawaii, because they're like, what about mold? And we're like, well, we're outside all the time. We're much more resourced here and we're in an open air environment. Like stuff is blowing in and blowing out. And it's just different than having like a horrible black mold situation all in your home while you're sleeping and it's blowing through your ventilation and stuff, and having like some outdoor mold spores that you are exposed to like when you mow and stuff like that. But if you are experiencing weird symptoms, 100% look at mold. Like you just have to. And I'm talking like weird rashes, weird itching, kids starting to bedwet again, have night terrors, weird infections, recurring. Like the common ones are like sinus things. You're having sinus things, headaches, um, really fussy babies. I mean, like it can mimic everything because basically what it's doing is it's causing histamine issues, and then that can mimic hormone issues and digestive issues, and the list goes on. That can cause racing thoughts, anxiety. I mean, it's crazy, but it's it's definitely something worth looking at and considering because it is a big problem and it is essential that you address it if it is a problem, because the longer you're in it, the more colonization that can happen in your body. And it's your home, so like if you're leaving your home and you get better when you're on vacation, you're at other people's houses, then you come home and you get sick again, that's like a telltale sign. And yeah, it's definitely interesting. I have resources for that as well. I have like a free mold guide and, just kind of like if you think you have mold, and we ended up making a mold course. That was not like something I wanted to do, but I really felt like
Hmm.
I was called to do that. And so we did, and
Yeah.
it's helped a lot of people. But yeah, definitely something to consider. And if you do know you have mold, like obviously you have to address it, but a really good tool to support you are the patches in that, because it will help you, but if you stay in the mold, you're on a treadmill, even if you're using supportive tools. So you have to fix the problem.
Which is the best patch for mold exposure?
Um, Glutathione is, but you have to be really conscious with your use of it. So X39 could just be a really great one because it does raise glutathione levels much slower than the glutathione patch. So I just would say get started with the X39. Test it for like if you know you're super toxic from mold, maybe wear it for like a couple hours a day and then put it on another person in your family. You guys can all like use the same patch for that whole day or whatever. And then that's going to raise glutathione levels 30%, whereas the glutathione patch will raise levels 300 to 400%. So that's a
Which
lot
is which
for
is
a
much
for
for
a
some people, right?
yeah. Yep.
Actually, and where can people find more information? You said you have this free guide
Mhm.
for example, that they can download. Where can they find more information about you? Where can they follow you?
Uh-huh. So simple holistic, like you said, the word simple, no E, holistic is like across the board. Instagram, Facebook, and then simpleholistic.org is my website. And then if you go on the website, you'll see freebies. So I have like the mold freebie, I have the mineral freebie. There's a bunch of freebies and different resources on there for people to learn about it.
Wonderful. And you also work with people one-on-one then. You work with people around,
Mhm.
right? Not just in person.
Yep, around the world, we have a global practice, and so anywhere you are, we can work with you, which is super
That's
awesome.
wonderful. Wonderful. I'll make sure to link everything below. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
So much information. I can't believe all the things that we were able to squeeze into this hour. But it was a wonderful talk. It was so nice to have you on, Ashlee. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. And thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.